Good morning. It's another beautiful Tuesday, and we are here at Money Truth Moments with Judy Copenbarger. How you doing, Judy?
I'm awesome, Carlos. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. I always look forward to our Tuesday morning show. I'm sure that a lot of folks who have been following us and tuning in love the wisdom, and they always have their cup of coffee ready to go and learn a lot of wisdom from you. So this is great. Folks, if you're just joining us, thanks for being here this morning. I am your host, Carlos Garcia. If you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. We're going to be talking about her website a little bit later on, just some of the great resources that are available for you. So make sure you stick around. If you're just joining us, please make sure you also share out this stream with folks that can benefit also from some of the wisdom and the topics that we cover during the show. So today's show is very exciting because it's talking about teaching the entire family about money. So I can't wait to ask you some of the questions that have come up. And so if you're ready, let's do it.
I am ready, and I am ready to do it. Let's go.
All right. So teaching the entire family about money. So is there a process that works best?
Well, there are processes that work. And I only did one. We have 5 children and raised them, and they get money. So that one works. But I would never, even as an expert, attempt to say this is the only way to do anything, because there are a lot of ways to accomplish things. So there is a method that does work, proven by many of our clients and many of the people I've spoken with and worked with over the years. And really it starts with understanding that there are 2 parts of financial security, financial success, wealth accumulation, whatever it is about when money works at your house, whatever you want to call that. And the 2 parts are kind of like a football game or a soccer game where you have offense and defense going on at the same time. There's always the part that you're trying to grow, and then there's the part that you're trying to keep from leaving you. And I think the best visual that I can come up with that is just to go over, I happen to have one right here, a visual of a greenhouse. So when you're thinking about a greenhouse, and the reason I use that is I love to garden. We have an organic garden and vineyard and orchard, and I've always been interested in that. And when you have a greenhouse, it protects what you have inside. For many years, we lived in Colorado, way up in the mountains, elevation almost 10,000. So a lot of snow, a lot of weather, a lot of deers and bears and bugs and bad things that could come get our garden. And if you think about that visual of a greenhouse, it's really a protective structure, isn't it? And inside that protective structure that is all about protection, you grow your garden. And in our greenhouse in Colorado, we also had our chickens in there, and we had our rabbits in there, and our goat and everything else. But the garden's in the spring and the summertime. So I think financially, we're also doing the same thing. We need to have a protective structure in which we grow our garden. So there are some things that we do protectively for our finances to protect them, legal things, entities, even something as simple as a will or a trust or power of attorney, insurances. You think about house insurance and health insurance and life insurance and all the insurances that protect you for professional liability or from tort liability if you have an accident. So those protect the money once you've grown it. And then you have the growth part. We want to take every dollar and optimize it as much as we can in the areas of growth. And doing that sometimes in a tax framework to minimize taxes so the money can grow even more. So when we're working with kids, I think they can understand something like this. They can understand that there are things that we do, activities that we engage in that protect our money, but other things that we do to grow our money. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's a great visual too. It puts things very well in perspective. So kind of following up with that, I've heard you also talk about over the several shows. Does this tie into the 5 pillars of finance that you've discussed before?
Absolutely. There are 5, and every decision that you make every day, every choice that you make every day around money, financial choices happen in one or more of 5 areas, which I call the 5 pillars of finance. So when we're thinking about the greenhouse, there are some protective areas of finance, the legal documents, legal contracts, and things like that. The insurances, like we talked about, health insurance, life insurance, auto insurance, all of that. And then there's taxation. And I think because there are things that we can do to protect ourselves from extra taxation, like extra taxes that we shouldn't pay or I don't want to pay any more than I have to. That kind of usually falls into that protective category. And then the two growth pillars of finance are cash flows and cash reserves, like how to manage the cash part and leverage the cash part, and then the investments. And the investments would include your real estate, your traditional investments like your 401k at work and your IRA and your stocks and bonds and portfolios and things like that. And also the leverage that you have in your business, any equity that you own in your business or real estate associated with that. So those are your 5 pillars.
And thanks for sharing that. I wanted folks to be reminded also that we've talked about this, and it's probably now a good time to also welcome folks again for joining us this morning. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you are, if you're not following Judy, you are following her at judycopenbarger.com. Some of the discussions that we're having, there's a lot of great resources for you guys on her website. And again, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about her website and some of those resources that are available for you guys. But again, because we're on a limited time, I want to make sure that we get to all of our questions. So when we're talking again about teaching the entire family about money, money creates a solid foundation to grow wealth and to prevent loss, right? But commonly, there's tragic family finance, I guess, flips and flops. Remind us why.
Well, it's those mistakes that we've made. It's especially in a time like this where there's been a lot of surprises financially for people. Maybe a job that they worked at, now they don't. Maybe a business that they owned, now they don't. Or they're not able to be at 100% capacity. So anytime we have a transition, anytime we have a change like that, and it's not always for a bad thing. It's not always for a pandemic or a serious health issue or somebody passes away suddenly. Sometimes it's for the best of reasons. Maybe we go back to school. We had 2 incomes and now one of us goes back to school or graduate school or something. Now our income has changed. That's a reboot. That's an adjustment. Maybe we have a baby. Maybe we have a litter. We had 3 kids and then surprise twins, right? And so all of a sudden the finances are different, not because something bad happened, because something wonderful happened, but it's an adjustment. And so that's a reboot. That's a time to recalibrate and maybe change the budget, maybe change where we're living, how we're living, change how the income flows and the cash flows flow out and the expenses happen. That's just a reboot. It's a change. So I hope I answered your question.
No, you did, absolutely. And so I know that we're also talking about family, and usually when we think about family, you keep bringing up kids, right? Which is another great point. One of the things that's come up, and I've seen myself personally over the years, is how are kids actually taught entitlement, right? And how can we prevent that?
Wow. Well, I think they hear it before they're even born. If the mama, the expecting mama, is ever around a radio or a YouTube video or a television where there's an ad or a commercial, they're already hearing it, right? And the advertisers and the marketing out there, I mean, we're really good at it in the U.S. and we're leading globally by that. So little ones are hearing it, they're seeing it, when they're watching their little their game shows or watching their little cartoons or whatever on television, or now they're watching on their cell phones. But there's these ads and all this information that says you need to do more, you need to have more, you need to buy this. This will make you happier. This will make you better. This will make you taller and prettier and stronger, right? So we've all been grown up with all this, and the kids are getting it now from very early. And the marketers are targeting these little ones. They're targeting them, toddlers even, and little school-age kids. So they're already getting the message that if you have this, if you do this, then you'll be that. Mm-hmm. And so the more they have, the more they get, the quicker they get it, the better they have than someone else has. That makes them somehow more valuable or personable or successful. And I think that's one of the big lies that just needs to go away. And that's just, I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit, but it's just so harmful. But what we can do at home, if we've got the kids that are still little, or I call them littles, like we've got the littles, or they're school-age kids, or even young adults that are still kind of hanging around, still accepting advice from mom and dad, we can let them know that they are not necessarily entitled. There's value to earning your own. Mm-hmm. And when the kids were little, I've been on the speaking circuit for many years, did a lot of MOPS and moms groups speaking. So the young mothers and the young parents trying to figure out how do I do this stuff? I don't remember when I was a kid. How do I do it? So I've spoken quite a bit, gotten a lot of feedback. Some of that's in the books, and we can talk about that a little bit. But how do they keep their kids from becoming entitled? And it's so easy to do because we have such an affluent society. Most of us do pretty well. Even if we're lower middle class, we live better than most of the world. And we can pretty much go where we want, do what we want, drive down the street, stop in and eat any kind of food that we want. Most of us are doing pretty well here if we're living in the U.S. And so if that's the case, our kids are going to grow up expecting that unless we help them learn a different way. So at our house, we never paid our kids for an A or a B. We never paid them for grades. That's their reward. They get to advance quicker and be at the top of that class so they can move ahead and do something even greater. That's the reward. It's not a cash reward. For many years in these areas where I was speaking with little ones, the questions would come about allowance. Should I give my kids money? How much should I give and how often? And what should I expect for them to do with that money? You know, how do I teach them how to use their own money? And I've always kind of put a line down the middle of the universe. And there's either earning chores where they work for the money and they earn, you know, something appropriate for their efforts, or there's an allowance, which just because time went by and it's Friday, you get your quarter or your dollar or whatever. And I was always of the opinion, and it worked pretty well at my house. It's not the only way though. I was always of the opinion that you got to work for it. You know, you got to earn it. There's so much value in the hard work. And if I went out and I raked up all those leaves and then I got my dollar, wow, or I stacked the shoes or I emptied the dishwasher. You know, even a toddler can be doing a lot of these chores and earning something. They have those chore charts, you know, those sticker charts. Homeschoolers are really great at this, you know, the tasks, and then you get 10 stickers and you get your goodie or whatever. But I always thought earning is better. And it could be because I grew up with, you know, parents and grandparents that just taught us that, you know, if you earn it, if you work for it, it's got more value to it somehow. What we would now call work ethic. But it was more than that. It was the value of working, the sense that you have that you accomplished something and produced something. So that's what we wanted for our kids. And that's kind of what I've shared. It has worked really well for us, for thousands of families. And I've gotten a lot of feedback that when they get rid of that entitleitis, they get rid of that gimme and I want it now, darn it. The kids kind of learn more value. It's like more self-respect or more self-esteem that comes from that. So I think it's more important than just about the dollar. It's about what they're learning about their abilities and capabilities.
I think also on a side note though too, I think as from what I've seen with parents too. So if there's been quite a bit of parents that have a tough upbringing, they don't have a whole lot. So, you know, their parents struggle to try to make ends meet and didn't have the latest or greatest. And I think sometimes when you grow up, you start becoming successful. You don't want your kids to go through that. And I think that's also part of the problem with kids tend to become entitled because you want them to have everything that they ask for. And that's a huge mistake, not learning how to really earn, you know, your keep basically, you know, and once you earn that money, you realize just how valuable it is. Do I really want to spend it on this or that? You know what I mean? Or a name brand just because so-and-so's got it or this rock star's got it. So it's gonna be, you know, what I need to do to make myself feel better. And that also reminded me of growing up too. I remember some of the old like shoe commercials, right? If you wear this particular type of basketball shoe, you're going to be able to jump 2 inches higher. So anything that you can do to take advantage. And it's like hook, line, and sinker. For kids, it was just like, oh, I got to have that. You know, I'm going to be able, you know, almost to be able to slam dunk or whatever it is at the time, you know? So it's
yeah, it's still there. And I think with, you know, the parenting part that you mentioned, also with blended families and divorced families, I think you get a lot of that indulging on the children with financially or with the goodies or with the toys or the whatever they want out of maybe a little guilt or, you know, I don't have the time to give them, but I can give them the things. And I think it can send the wrong message. And here on the West Coast in Southern California, there's a lot of affluence. I think on all the coasts, you know, there's very wealthy people. And you see some of these young people that just, you wonder, their expectations are so high for that lifestyle that just kind of falls from heaven. You wonder how they're going to sustain that and maintain that. There has to be a crash at some time in the future, unless they're trust children and they always have the money to show up. But if not, they marry somebody. Now their expectations are, you're 32, my dad's 55, but you're 32. How come you aren't doing what he does? And how come you don't get me a new car every other year? And I think that can really do damage to a relationship when those expectations are that way. So it's about future relationships and future productivity and all these things, that ripple effect. But it is something that we can do at home. If we have young people in our lives, we can do with our children, our grandchildren, nieces, nephews, while they're home, just kind of instilling in them the value of working and earning and being innovative and creating wealth on their own.
That's awesome. So I also want to take a moment now. It's a perfect segue to talk about your website, judycopenbarger.com. Let's talk about some of the resources that are available. And if I can ask you to please speak a little bit about Money, Truth, and Life, which congratulations. Bestseller, continues to do really well everywhere. And I also would like for you to talk about the online mastery program, because I think these are really great resources. And these are just a few that I know you're going to talk about, but that folks need to know about, especially right now that we're talking about family, teaching the entire family about money. I think these are some great, awesome resources. So if you don't mind sharing with us.
Absolutely. There are some great resources. And it doesn't have to be a daunting, stressful, outrageous, crazy task to think about. How do I have them be successful financially for their whole life? It's all these little bits along the way. It's things that we can teach them as we go. But yeah, the first thing is on YouTube. I've got all kinds of videos where you can learn things about working with your kids, things about all the technical, what's an APR and what's life insurance and the permanent versus term life insurance, and how do I pick? How do I know if it's good for me and which to get and how much I should spend? What's a trust? What's a will? What's a stock? What's a bond? What kind of stock should I have? There's several videos on stock. I just put a couple up again this last week. So YouTube can be a resource for you for many of these topics, technical or family related and harmony related. And then the book is very parallel in concept to the online mastery course. So the Money, Truth, and Life book, you can go on Amazon and get it for a few bucks. On Kindle, I don't think it's very much at all. Probably the cost of a coffee with Frappuccino on top or Frappuccino fufu. Or you can get a hardback for whatever, $20, whatever it is. But and it's sold everywhere, so you can get that book. But it goes through the 5 pillars of finance in detail. It lays them out at a very basic level where you understand finally, once and for all, the truth about these things and what you need to know about them and how they work and the pros and cons to a lot of these selections that you'll be asked to make when you're working with a financial advisor or an insurance agent or a real estate agent, all of that. But it's done with stories as well. So real life stories from our life, from our clients' lives, where people made really smart choices and others blew it. And you get to learn from their lives and their stories and their experiences without having to make all the mistakes, from the School of Hard Knocks yourself. So that's in the book. And then the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery course goes through all the 5 pillars in a very systematic way with videos. So it's an online video class, just like if you went to university, but you can take classes in each pillar and learn the basic concepts. And then there are worksheets and templates and ways to apply it to yourself. So if you have a strategic financial planner, you're probably already having some of those services provided. But if you don't have one that is doing a very comprehensive or holistic approach to your finances, chances are they're missing something. Even if you have somebody that says they're a comprehensive planner, they're probably missing something. So if you can go through and find the gaps, it'll give you enough information to know what questions to ask, where there's a gap in your planning or where there's something that you can do more or better, different, and get your finances in total order. So your house is in order and you can move forward and keep it that way.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I appreciate you sharing some of those resources. Folks, you have to visit her website at judycopenbarger.com. Like she said, there's a wealth of information that's free. There's a lot of YouTube videos. Subscribe to her channel as well, Judy Copenbarger. So look it up on YouTube. You'll be able to find a lot of great content, a lot of great information that actually she talks about different topics and different things that we've covered throughout a lot of the shows as well too. So Thanks for doing that, and thank you for sharing that, because I think it's also very valuable that although you share the wisdom and everything that you want folks to know, there's also that follow-up with those free resources that folks can take their time and look into it. So let's go back to talking about teaching the entire family about money. So we started to talk about kids, the entitlement, how we can prevent it. Talk to us about what does it take to really teach children of multiple ages, right, about money?
Well, it takes teamwork. I think if I were going to give you like a list, I'd say the first thing is you've got to model it for them. Don't just tell them, you got to show them. Remember show and tell?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't just tell them. These littles and school age kids and even young adults, they're still watching you. And what you're doing, how you're modeling your life, how you're handling your finances is going to speak to them much more than what you tell them to do, especially coming from a parent, right? It's like, yeah, what do you know, mom? What do you know, dad? So you gotta model it, get your life right, get your finances right, and that'll be the best way to help them. The second thing that I would do is say, be consistent. So whatever you're doing to work with them, let's say you have little kids and you're teaching them about money and spending money at let's say the grocery store, because everybody has to go there at some point. And you're going to buy cereal and you're going to buy chicken and you're going to buy gum and cans of tuna, whatever you're going to buy. Well, while you're there, you can talk to them about the cost of things and why you're choosing that can of soup over the other can of soup. Talk about the cost, the expense, the price per unit. There are things that you can do. If you're going to talk to them about the expenses that you have in the home, you can look at the utility bill and the water bill, maybe show them the mortgage bill. Now, maybe not a 4-year-old, although they probably know more than you think they know, but definitely school age kids. And here's how the money goes out. When daddy goes to work and he drives away in the truck or drives away in his car, he goes to work and he comes back. He does that to get money. When mama goes to work, she does that to get money so we can do these things and we can have lights and we can have water and we can take a trip over to Disneyland or Chuck E. Cheese or whatever. And all these things cost money. How would they know that? If you didn't show the bill and tell them it costs money, how would they know? They just expect that all this stuff just magically shows up. It goes back to that entitleitis. I deserve all this. Nobody had to work to make it happen. Well, yeah, they did. Why not share that with them, even when they're small? They'll get it. So I'd say just be consistent with the training and the teaching, age appropriately, of course. And I've got resources that can help you with that. What can a 4-year-old get? What can a 12-year-old get? What can an 18-year-old get? There's resources for that. And then I think the last thing is make it fun. When you start talking about money and working with your kids with money, their natural little skills and talents and loves are going to come out of them. One of our sons is entrepreneurial, and he was from the moment he was born. He was counting money and ironing his dollars and putting it in his little briefcase. He's pretty good at money. He was the one that when they were kids and we'd go have a park day, all the little 2, 3, 4-year-olds, he would be out there picking up cans and bottles. He'd get all the kids organized to go get all that stuff because he knew there was money in them there cans, right? And he'd put them all in a bag and we'd go to the recycle center and he'd get his money. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. He still does that. Ping, ping, ping. And then when he was a little older, he was interested in cars. And so he started collecting the hubcaps that get lost. You know, you drive by and you see hubcaps propped all over the place. Pull over, Mom. There's a Ford. There's a Chevy. There's a Mercedes. So we collect these hubcaps, and he had a little business of sorting all these hubcaps and giving them or selling them to people that lost one or needed one. Later, it was the lemonade stand, and he discovered early, probably 5 or 6 years old, on hot days, wow, if you have anything with ice in it or that's ice cold at the soccer field, you're going to make bank. And if you get the right candies that everybody wants, oh my goodness, as long as you don't let your friends help you and eat the proceeds, right? But he was so entrepreneurial. And so working with him that way, all of that got to come out of him, and he got to express it and practice it and learn what worked and what didn't work. I've got a couple of children that love to count. They're the accountants. They're the budgeters. They're the ones that set up programs for other people so they know how to have a spending plan that works. And it's all adjustable, and in Excel, you know, it moves here and goes there and everything totals out, and 20% of my money goes this way and 17.2 goes here. And so it's done in a planning way, not just what happened, but what we want to have happen. And so all those natural gifts start to come out when you work with them, even when they're really small. But I think if you start early, you're consistent, you're modeling well, and you let them practice, they're going to be really doing great, and they're going to be well on their way to having financial success.
I really appreciate you sharing that story. That's an awesome story. You know, you got to be very proud. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're doing great. Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, folks, and I know we're getting closer to the end of the show, but you know what time it is. It's time for a Money Truth Challenge, right?
I love this part. Are you ready?
Absolutely. So, hey, let's do this. I'm dying to know what we got this week.
Before I get into this week's challenge, a couple of weeks ago, we had a challenge that I got great feedback for. And we were talking about relationships and the impact of relationships on money and the impact of money on relationships and how it's all kind of tied together. And I had a wonderful inspiration from a young woman who shared the challenge that she took. And she said, what I did when I actually put pen to paper was I started thinking about the culture that we have in our family. Not what's broken or what's really working poorly, but something that I can do every day, doesn't cost anything, to make my family harmony stronger, to make us get along a little better. And she decided to bring honor back into her household. And so things like, thanks, Mom, for doing the dishes. Thanks, Dad, for going out and earning money. Thanks for doing what you did. Congratulations. You work so hard. You've gone to school. You provide for us so well. I just want to honor you and thank you for doing what you do every day for us. Wow. Well, then it catches on, right? And then, well, you know what? You're really great too. Congratulations for what you're doing. You're working hard too. I see how hard you study, how you're working toward those grades and you're preparing for your future. It just brings that whole honor in to her household. And that's what she took from the challenge about just doing a little bit of something to transition, bring harmony into the family. So that's something I wanted to share from a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was beautiful. And we all could do that, right? Here's your challenge for today. Since we're talking about young families, working with young people, I want you to write down 3 things, pen and paper, right? The first thing is identify some young people in your life. Who are they that you can inspire, help, teach, train? Maybe they're your own children. Maybe they're grandkids. Maybe they're nieces and nephews. Maybe they're kids from your Sunday school class or neighbor kids that, your kids all get together with sports or something and they're there, but they're in your life. So identify who they are. Who are these young people? The second thing is to consider 3 wins that you've had personally. You're going to get a little transparent here. It's good for you and good for them. What are 3 things you did right? Maybe you delayed gratification for a goal that you had. You didn't buy the first car brand new. You did it later, So 3 things financially over your lifetime that you've done really well. You're glad you made that choice. And then 3 things that you wish you would have done more, better, different. 3, what you could call mistakes or learning moments or defining moments. 3 things that, boy, didn't go well, but here's what we know now. 3 pluses, 3 minuses. And then the third thing is create a plan to share it with them. So Easter's coming up. Maybe you're going to be with the family at Easter. Your grandkids will be there. Your kids will be there. Maybe Easter weekend or Easter week spring break is a time that you can actually do some of these things. And it could be as simple as going to the grocery store or the toy store and looking at the prices, talking about expenses, whipping out your utility bills, talking about that, or just teaching them what you have learned. Share with them what you did well, what you didn't do well. Maybe this summer, if your kids are going to be with you, your grandkids are going to fly out, coast to coast to come see you for a week or 2 or something. If you're going to have young people where you've got that captive audience and that time together and you're thinking of things to do anyway, why not put some financial education as part of your activities? So here's your challenge, right? Identify the young people in your life. Write down 3 things positive, 3 things negative from your life experience having to do with money, and then create a plan to work with those young people so they can learn from what you've learned in life. That's your challenge.
Excellent, folks. And you've heard the challenge. We look forward to hearing back from you guys. Please share it on the chat or send us a message so we can actually bring that up and share with other folks some of the incredible things some of you folks are out there doing. So we've come to the end of the show. Judy, as always, a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for being here with us on Money Truth Moments. We want to make sure, folks, that if you're just joining us, this is the end of the show, but please go back and replay it. There was a lot of great discussion, specifically more about teaching our entire family about money. So you definitely want to play it back or share it out with folks as well, too. And if you're not following Judy, visit her website at judycopenbarger.com. All of her social media platforms are on there. You can follow her. Plenty of resources on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well, too. So any last parting words, Judy?
Yeah, I think just stay open, be transparent, don't be afraid to share, and just stay open and make it a great week.
Awesome. And remember, we're here every Tuesday, 8 a.m. We'll see you guys next week. Another great show. Thank you, Judy.
My pleasure.